What's up, YouTube? Welcome to Fred's Full Throttle. Each week, I'm going to take you with me on my adventures in the world of cars and occasionally motorcycles. So let's get right into it. Alright, so I've got a track day coming up and I need to get the bike set up to have cameras. So previously when doing track days, I was able to wear a GoPro mount on the side of my helmet, and it would be something where I could be in the riding position, you'd get a good view of the handlebars, my arms, but then as the bike would lean and tilt and do various things like that, you'd be able to get that perspective as you're riding. Unfortunately, nowadays you can't do that due to safety regulation, and a lot of the tracks, it's probably insurance liability reasons. You can't have the helmet cam on the side of your helmet, because if you were to fall on it, the impact point would basically like concentrate the pressure on the side of the helmet or anywhere on the helmet wherever you choose to mount it. So instead, what you have to do is you have to mount it on the bike somewhere. So one of the challenges with doing that is that the bike vibrates a lot. This is a V-twin, so it's got two cylinders. They're at a 90-degree angle to each other. So it means that there's two different planes that the bike vibrates against. And so you gotta kind of deal with this in a couple different ways. One, you can use a rubber-mounted camera setup where it's mounted on something that's rubberized and hopefully absorbs some of that. Second is I'm using GoPro Hero 8s. They've got kind of that hyper smooth technology in them. And so that helps deal with some of the visual vibration that you see. And then the last piece is actually mounting them in a location that doesn't vibrate a lot anyway. So the closer you are to the engine, or the more you're on a kind of suspended piece of metal, such as like the frame of the bike on the side, you're going to get a lot more vibration. But mounting it more towards the front, especially if it's on the forks or handlebars, towards the center, you're going to get less vibration. Now, my mounts I use Ram mounts, not sponsored or anything. I go and they buy them on Amazon like everybody else. So they have a rubberized ball, a little arm, and then another ball, and then the camera is mounted on top of that. Now, one other piece that you want to consider as you're doing this is that you have to safety wire them to the bike. So if you're not aware what safety wire is, basically you take a bolt somewhere on the bike and you attach the wire to it. It could be looped around and then tightened down. It could be with a special plate. I've got some of those, which I'll show you. But you attach it to the back of the camera right here where the hinge is, and it's a thin metal wire. And what you do is, not only is it attached to the bike, but you then twist it and cinch all the slack out of it so that basically it can't move anywhere. And so the idea here is that if this connector, this pivot point where the camera normally mounts to something, if that breaks, the camera's not going to go flying off and become a 100-mile-an-hour projectile and hit somebody. That would obviously be really dangerous. And so the idea here is that the safety wire protects everyone else, as well as probably yourself, from if the camera breaks off. Now, there's one other consideration you need to make, and that is wherever you mount it, you need to be sure that it can't fall into anything that will interfere with the operation of the bike. So a good example of that is I don't want to mount it right here, because if it falls, it could get in the way of the lever and I might not be able to pull my brake. If I mounted it somewhere down here and it breaks, it could get in the way of the steering being able to turn, which is obviously also a real problem. And so you have to make sure that wherever the wire is attaching it, it's pulling it away from important, pieces of movement for the bike. So my thought is I'm going to mount them up on the handlebars. However, I'm going to have it pulled so that the wires go to the front, so that if this falls, it literally can't end up in the steering harness. Now, I haven't done this for this bike before, and I have never bike mounted a GoPro before, so we'll see how it works. We'll see if it comes out any good. So I've never mounted these directly on a bike before, but I think I'm going to be able to get a good view. Now, the other thing is I have two of them, so I'm going to basically position them like this on the bike. So I have one facing me, and I have one facing forward. And what that'll do is I'll put the one aimed at me wide angle so you can kind of see everything going on around me while I'm riding. And then I'm going to have one on the front, which is a little bit more linear. It's going to lose that fisheye effect, but it'll give you ultimately a little bit better view of what the bike is doing. You'll feel the leaning as I go into the corners, and we'll see how that looks. I haven't done it before, so we'll see. Yeah, so let's get to it. All right, so you can see that I've got GoPro 1, GoPro 2 mounted here on the bike. And I haven't safety wired everything else. I've only done one, but I'll show you what that looks like, and then I'll do the rest kind of off camera. More importantly is just getting the idea of how it works. So this camera here is safety wired. So if I loosen this a little bit, and then pivot this up, You can see I'm basically wrapping around the bolt here for the triple clamp that holds the handlebars, and it runs up here and it mounts through the axle, kind of the pivot point for where when you open the back hatch on this, basically there's a little gap in the axle for the door on the back of the GoPro mount. What you need is it needs to be looped around that. That's metal, and that's very unlikely to snap in the event of a crash or something that might break the mount. And basically all you do is you twist the wire so that there's tension on it, and then you loop it through, and then you twist it further, and that basically makes a captive point. This is pretty strong steel wire made for this purpose, so it's not going to snap. I mean, I can't break it by pulling on it. You have to use like metal snips. Here's the tool that you use. Basically, you would thread both ends of a wire, I just happen to have some right here, through that hole, like so. Hold this and then twist. Now you can see that this is just a loose piece, but basically if this end was connected to, like, through that triple clamp, you'd see that it would put a twist in the wire. And I mean, I can't pry that apart with my hands. That's pretty darn strong. This wire, I don't know what gauge it is, but it's pretty strong. So it's going to hold up in a crash. And then basically you snip off the excess, which that's what this piece is. But that's how safety wiring stuff works in motorcycles. Then anyway, so if we flip this down, you can see that the GoPro is on the front of the bike and it's going to have a good view. It's kind of tucked down and out of the way. And then this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to safety wire it from the axle back here, also to the triple clamp kind of mounting point, and then probably also to the other one. You have to have two. And so that's so that if one breaks, the other one is protecting and still holding the camera. This is a pretty compact way to do it. I've got my mount plates, which these have kind of a plastic protector, and then it has a metal U-bolt that's threaded, and then two bolts on it. And then it's got one of the ram mount kind of rubber balls. You have kind of the short arm. I've got a long arm over here as well. And basically you tighten this down, and then you've got this final ball that attaches to a GoPro. I've got two of those. And it's a fairly straightforward setup. Pretty easy. The hardest part is honestly the safety wiring, is just getting everything to fit, getting everything to be tight and under tension. And you can see when I lift this up, it's under tension. And then actually when I pull this back, it's pulling it taut again, and that keeps the camera under tension so that in the event of something happening, it would actually pull the camera down in front of the handlebars rather than wedging anything down here where it could interfere with steering. All right, so that's all I wanted to show you guys. I wanted to show you how I could do the setup with the cameras, do it safely, abide by all the rules that they have for the track days, and hopefully it's going to give me some pretty neat footage, kind of with a fisheye view of the rider and then a linear view out in front. So anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful, and until next time, Fred out.